This is going to be such a super video on, first of all, not just mastering, but on how you get high quality sounds, tricks in the mastering process that, you know, it's stuff that sometimes I won't do a video on because I'm like, do you know, do people really want to learn about this? But then I'm like, you know what, people do want to learn about this. So we're going to take, in this one we're doing our presidential clap kit for loop gurus. Now I want you to understand, when you buy one of these kits off of us, I spend time on this stuff. I mean, I don't just take this and say, yeah, let's just do this and do that and throw it through my hardware. I've heard people say that, like, oh, just slap it through the Manly. I can't do that. I take the time necessary to make the best sound even-wise as I can. The number one thing when it comes to it, when it comes to kicks, claps, snares, whatever it is, what sound it is how we even out the frequencies. The number one thing that I figured out when it comes to sounds on the internet, or searching for sounds and loops and samples, and why when you pay for something like this, you're way ahead as far as your time to get a quality production together, and I'm going to explain to you why in this step, why this is important. So we do take our time on these. We have the 808 Mafia kit style kind of deal. We got some kick drums, we've got snare drums, we've got sounds, and we're going to continue to build this, and I thank everybody for the support. So in response to the support, if you're not into purchasing those, that's fine. I want to teach you some tricks. The first trick I want to teach you is this. This is a snare drum. Actually, it's a clap with kind of a snare within it. But one of the things with snares is a lot of times, or claps, in this certain thing, these raw files we're getting, the left-right is what we process as mastering engineers. But sometimes you want to get a little bit deeper and in-depth, and you want to work on, you know, sound design and sound field, and really get into a real nice mastering, you know, style. In a recording, there's a mid channel and there's side channels, and that's called Midside Processing. Well, what's cool about it when we have some real nice hardware in the studio is the first thing we were doing, and I'll go through it one by one, is take the left-right, and in Wavelab 7, which this is, you can convert left-right to mid-side. So now, instead of the left channel being processed with my hardware, it's the middle channel, and the sides are being processed as if it were the right side. Then I'll put in my external gear, as you can see here, and then after I'm done processing what I like and adding the warmth and the punch and the dynamic control and the snap and the goodness, I bring it from the mid side and actually encode it back into the left-right. Then after that, since that's not good enough, a lot of these sounds I like to use a multiband, and in this sound, as you can see, I tried to pause it so we could do this for this video, but it's controlling about a 2.0 ratio. The threshold is grabbing between 5 and 10K, all the way up into the 18K. Reason being is because that frequency range likes to get out of control real quick. So tip number one, instead of turning this down with an EQ, which would take away all the snap and the good stuff in that snare, we need to dynamically control it. Because a lot of times with people making samples or just recording right out of a studio, they really don't pay attention like this. This is what mastering engineers or real professional mixing engineers get paid to do. We get paid to sit around and perfect sounds, which I absolutely love, by the way. So what I did was made sure to grab the attack on this. If you can hear this snare, let me take off that multiband and watch how piercing this gets. It's crazy, isn't it? So right now, number 2 is my tips on snare drums. Don't take all the muffle out of the snare. What I mean by that is it needs a little low end. That's what makes it sound real. If I start doing this stuff, let me show you this. A lot of guys do this as well. And if you have to do this because you have a super huge 808 in your production or something, but this is really tiny. Listen to this. That might be cool, like for a part in a song. Like if you did, see, mixing's all about this. If I did this style snare drum, like with a radio / telephone effect vocal for a temporary time in the song, that's great, but we're going to want to bring it back up to the original where it has some beef. I've learned one thing. If a snare drum, and if you tune it correctly, and it's on point, and it's tuned to the vocals, and it's tuned to the song, it sounds so great. When it's not, it sounds horrible. It's just sort of sitting out in right field by itself. So let's explain this process. Multiband compressor is used to just control the frequencies I want without having to control all the frequencies I want. I will go through the pieces of hardware as well as we're using. This is the presidential clap kit. Let's explain this. So what we're doing with the mid-side is right here. What's so cool about it is when you do mid-side processing in WaveLab, the left channel is the middle. So the left channel of the Manley, that's one awesome compressor on the left. So it's like I have two of them now. And then the right, so instead of running stereo, I'm summing to mono and then summing back out to stereo. So it just sounds fantastic on these snares. It sounds fantastic on everything if you do it right. You can do it wrong too, and it sounds horrible. But anyways, because that's another big deception in mixing or mastering. It's not always just because you got the gear, you know what you're doing. So what I did here was I used the Manley to warm up the sound. That's another thing about vacuum tubes. Vacuum tubes, if you're going to pay for anything about this kit, that vacuum tube is going to impart a warmness to that snare. What that does is it's very easy to listen to when it is loud. It really takes and calms down the frequencies that are harsh. It lets me control these things in a way where it's hard to do with plugins. It really is. The next step and the next stage in the clap is same principle. There's two of these liquid channels here, and the left one is working on the mids. What I did on the left one is I put it in limit mode because I want to limit these. These are more for dance music. They're more for hip hop music. So it's like, you know, we're not gonna sit here and try to be real light on the compression or be more true to the room. And we don't have a room here. We just have a snare drum clap. Excuse me. So what I did here is actually, if you can see, this is a 3-band EQ itself, and this is how jacked this raw sound was. I rolled off about 18 dBs at 5 to 6K, excuse me. That's how loud that was above this. By listening in this room, in this environment, and knowing what's right and what's wrong, that is why your mix did not sound good, because that was 18 decibels too loud at 6K. What that means is you would turn it up to a certain extent, but it wouldn't sound full or focused. It wouldn't sound good. The reason being is because that frequency range was 18 decibels too loud, like I said 7 times. The next one was around 600 hertz. The body of this sound was just a little bit heavy in the 600, and then the low end was scooped so much on this raw file that this is the way they captured it. So I actually added, which I never normally do, but around 300 hertz, I added some mud, and I added a little bit of grit to it, because that's what we want. When we turn the speakers up now and you turn it to the 0 point, whether you're in your car or whether you're in the studio, you have a good level to start your mix. One of the biggest things about snare drums and kick drums is it's a great starting point for new mixing engineers, or just to know that your mix is in the ballpark. The next thing we did, so you understand, is there is information on the sides, and in this case all that information was low audio rumble or jitter caused by clock or bad conversion. So what I can do is I totally cut out under 400 hertz on the sides. What that did was concentrated the energy straight up and down. The snare drum's sitting well, but it still has a coal effect to the left and right. One of the biggest things that happens to new producers is they don't add that second dimension to that sound. Some of the greatest people I know, like Mihai, is very good at this, and Mihai started Loop Gurus with me. Mihai is such a sound designer that he'll go the next step. He doesn't just listen to the kick drum, and as well as you dance and you know, electronic and dubstep producers, house producers, you understand one thing, that the dimensions of the sound, first of all, are the way to go. I did a kick drum kit where I made the kicks on purpose a little bit more solid and round, so you could add your own shorter attack snap to the kick, so you can layer as well. So these sounds will, first of all, give you more headroom. Second of all, give you a starting point for your production. And here was the thing: when we start compressing a snare drum is just like I said in the solid state kick drum video. You really have to feel out the threshold, ratio, attack, and release. When you first start compressing, you're usually going to overdo it. You're going to over-compress the sound because you can't hear it as quick. When you've been compressing for, you know, a half of a century, you start to realize, hey, you know, what sounds good with what? What EQ can I do here and what EQ can I do there? So what I wanted to show you in this video was pretty much that mid-side stuff. if you have any way of doing this, this is very beneficial. If you can go through and process your sounds, or if you want to purchase these sounds, they will, without a doubt, help your production. And we spend time on this. So here was the chain of events. Left, right, create mid-side. Go through the hardware. We're using a combination of EQ and compression. Then we are converting it back to the MS to the left-right. So mid-side back to left and right. Then we use a multiband compressor because we didn't want to take out too many frequencies in a certain frequency range, which was the 4K, 1K, 2K. We dynamically controlled it with a multiband, and then we did a final EQ just to give it a nice balance between all the frequency ranges. And that, my friends, is how we work on this stuff. If you have any questions, hit me up, dude. This could be a post forum. If you want to ask me mixing questions, feel free.